Welcome back, everybody. I'm Kalani. In this video, I'm going to be explaining modes. What are they? How can we use them? Why should you be familiar with modal music? And what can you do with it? That's what we're here to talk about. So this is going to be a fairly long video. I've got a keyboard here we're going to be looking at. I'll be explaining lots of terms like key, mode, pitch, note, interval, whole step, half step, blah, 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 blah. And I've got more graphics for you later. We're going to be looking at these. But by the end of this, you'll have a really good idea of what modes are. You'll know how to, or you'll have the tools to identify them and hopefully to use them and make music and experience different types of music without needing to know very much about music theory and even, everything I just talked about. But you'll have the tools to be able to hopefully select some backing tracks or communicate to another musician that you'd like to play in a certain mode, therefore they would need to play a certain background for you to, or a certain foundation for you to then play on top of. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So for this lesson, if you'd like to participate with me in real time, now you're certainly free to sit there and just watch and listen and then try this later. But if you'd like to participate in real time, I invite you to do that. You'll need an A flute or A minor flute, a flute on A, I'm just using a mid A. You can use a higher A, lower A, it doesn't matter. But you'll need an A flute. And then you can experience some of this with me. So I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started with some basic music terminology. Let's go to the overhead. Actually, we're gonna do this. Boom! Isn't that fun? So I'm gonna take you through some basics now. If this is, if you already know this, you could skip ahead. I'll leave some chapter markers down in the info section, the description. So if you'd like, you can skip ahead. This will be basic musical terms right now. So look down here, and you see this is like a piano keyboard, white keys, black keys. We're only going to use the white keys right now. And this is, just the white keys. And this is the note C right here. This instrument is a harmonium, by the way. So this is the note C, and you can see that it's right next to the two black notes. We've got sets of 2 and sets of 3. So, and you don't need to remember all this, I'm just gonna go through it. So this is C, D, E, guess what's next? F, G, A, B, and C. That's right. So it repeats. You can see here that it starts, this is a C, really low, and then it repeats here, here, and here, and then there's a little bit more up here, actually goes up to F. So this is what we call 1, 2, 3 octaves, and we're gonna call that a half. It's almost a half. So this is our keyboard. We're going to ignore the black keys for now. We don't need to use them for our purposes right now. So if we start on C and we go up, right? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's what we call a major scale. And on C major scale, right? So that's what we call that. There's also a modal name for it called the Ionian mode. Why is it called that? Because it's Greek. And all the mode names are from, in the Greek language, this goes back a long time. So all the names are Greek. If they sound a little strange to you, that's why. If you're Greek, they're not gonna sound strange. All right, so that's our major scale. But what if, instead of starting on C, we used the same notes, in other words, all the white keys, but we started on a different note? In this case, let's just start on D, and let's play from D to D up the scale. What would that sound like? That, my friends, is what a mode is all about. It's pretty simple. It's basically taking the white keys on the piano, in this case, taking a set of notes, in this case a major scale, but starting on what we would call the second degree or the second note of the scale instead of the first note. The first note was C in the major scale. Now we're starting on D. And we have this, if we played a foundation down here, or just a D, and then we play over it, and I'm going to use this pre-recorded sample here, and then I play over it, Isn't that interesting? It has a whole different feel. It's the same notes. It just sounds different because we're putting what we call a tonal ground or a harmonic ground or background or bass, whatever you want to call it. We're putting that root on D instead of C, but we're playing the same notes. Now the good news for you is that you can play your same flute. It's just like, you know, all the notes on your flute are the white keys on the piano, basically. So I'm going to stop right here and just remind you that your A minor flute starts on A, it starts on this note, and it has, usually if you're a 5-hole flute, it has these notes. Right, which are white keys missing F and B, but it's basically these notes. So if I was going to put, let's say, the A in the foundation, I could play over it with my flute, and it has a minor sound. All right, so let's talk about why a mode is a mode. Why don't we just say, well, just play this root and play over it, and that's what it is. Well, we need a way to talk about these because they are different. And here's how they're different. Every scale or mode is made up of a series of intervals, right? An interval is the distance between two notes. Look down here again. The distance between C and D is what we call a whole step. The distance between E and F is what we call a half step. A half step sounds like this. It's very close together, there's a lot of tension. And a whole step sounds like this. It's still pretty close, but not as close. In the major scale, there's a whole step from C to D. There's a whole step from D to E. There's a half step from E to F. There's a whole step from F to G. There's another whole step from G to A. Another whole step from A to B. And a half step at the very end from B to C. And then it starts over. So we could say that the scale or the mode includes, from the root, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And that series of steps from the root, from the bass, whatever we're calling the bass, whatever pitch we're calling the root, that is what kind of makes the mode sound like it does, because it changes all the relationships between the root and the rest of the notes. I hope that makes sense. Let's review it again. The major scale is C, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. If we start on D, which is what we call Dorian mode, and I'll show you all these modes in a second. You don't have to remember that. That's Dorian mode. If we start on D, we're going to shift all these relationships down, right? So they're going to come, the half steps are going to come a little bit earlier. So let's start on D and look at the whole step, half step sequence. Now it's going to be D to E is a whole step, and now a half step right away. And now a whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and another whole step at the end. And that's what really makes, it gives the mode the characteristics of that mode. A lot of music in Dorian mode includes Gregorian chant, a lot of jazz, different kinds of music are in Dorian mode. And we can keep shifting up. We can start on E, and that could be our scale. That's called Phrygian mode. We could start on F, and if that's our root, and we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's called Lydian mode, and etc., etc. We're going to go over all the modes right now in sequence, and we're going to look at them through the lens of whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whatever the sequence is. And you'll see, I think, pretty clearly that it's fairly simple. We're just shifting everything a little bit, and we're putting the root or the root chord, you know, the root note, the bass note, in on a different degree of the scale or a different note. And that's what gives every mode its characteristic. So look at this graphic. Don't let your head explode too much. I'll explain. We're going to start down at the bottom, the red line, and this is our major scale. It's whole step, is it? Oh, from the, I'm sorry, from the root, it's whole step, half step, whole step, half step, right? Are you following that? All the way down at the bottom, the red one, Ionian. We're going to start on C, and we're going to go up. So here we go. 1, 1, half, 1, 1, 1, half. Now look at Dorian is the next one up. That's the second row from the bottom. We're going to start on D. And now you can see that everything is shifting one to the left, basically. So now we're going to play D Dorian, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, and so on. So as we go up, now let's skip a couple, because Phrygian's not used that much. Let's go to Mixolydian, the green one. And we're going to start that on G. Mixolydian mode. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. Now, Aeolian mode, the purple one. Let's start on A. So we're starting here on A. We're going to go whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. Sorry, half step, whole step, whole step. Now you can look at some similarities. Look at the similarity between Aeolian and Dorian. They start off the same, but later the half steps are in a little bit different place. Same thing with Mixolydian and Ionian. They start off pretty much the same, but later the half steps are in a little bit different place. And that is really the interesting thing about the modes, is they're all a little different. So how can you play your flute and you just play the same flute and you can have a different backing track and yet you're playing in these different modes? Well, it's pretty simple. your flute is a fixed tuning instrument. If you play the basic notes, not doing half holes and a lot of cross fingering, just your basic up and down the flute kind of fingerings, maybe having an F in there, so that's one cross fingered hole. But you're not doing anything super fancy. You're just kind of playing your basic C pentatonic scale, or maybe C pentatonic plus F. You're playing up and down. You're playing the white keys on the piano. So all you have to really know is, where is the home note? Is it on C? Is it on A? Is it the bottom hole? Is it the first? Is it one finger up? Is it two fingers up? Is it three fingers up? Let's play in Ionian mode, the one that we started with. And that one is going to root on the C, which is one hole up, one finger up, bottom hole open. So that sounds like this. So if you have your flute, you can play over this. All right, let's try D. And now your root is going to be two holes, two fingers open, or two holes open, two fingers up. D Dorian. Pretty simple, right? But isn't it interesting that just a little shift, where we're shifting the foundation, can have such a big impact on the music? It just makes you play differently. Three of the modes are kind of a major sound, and 3.5 of them are a minor sound. Now we don't use, I'm gonna go back to this graphic for a second. We actually, hold on. There we go. We don't really use Locrian too much. It's very rare. Aeolian is your minor scale. It's called the natural minor. Mixolydian is great. We use that a fair amount. Lydian is maybe a little less predominant, but still used. Phrygian is not used too much unless there's a modification, which I'm not going to get into now. Dorian is used quite a bit, and so is Ionian. Ionian is just a major scale. So I would say you could look into, if you want to start getting into modes, the first thing you could do is maybe play some Dorian mode, which I just did. As I mentioned, it's kind of got that Gregorian chant kind of feel or tonality. And then I would say Aeolian, of course, is a minor mode. We all play in that a lot already. So if you want to do something a little more exotic, I would say go to Mixolydian, which is on G. So actually, I'm gonna loop a G drone right now, and then we can try playing over it. So you can get your flute, and your root is going to be just your top hand. I'm sorry, it's going to be this. whole different thing. Okay, so let's review a few basics. A mode is another term that we could use for scale. However, when we use the word mode, it kind of implies how we're using that scale. For example, if we take all of the whole steps and half step sequence that make a major scale, that's really our scale. Our modes are where we start on that scale and which note we make our base note or our home note. So if we're starting on C, and we're playing the white keys, we're starting on C, it's going to be Ionian mode. If we start on D, it'll be Dorian mode. If we start on E, it's called Phrygian mode. F is Lydian mode. G is Mixolydian. A is Aeolian, and B is Locrian. And as I mentioned at the beginning, those are all Greek names. Don't ask me why. You can look it up. But these modes were studied and talked about in philosophical works. Plato, Aristotle, goes all the way back. It's really interesting, I think, and fascinating. But it's something that you can do with one flute. You don't need a bunch of different flutes. As long as you know what key your flute is in, you can relate that and play in a background, have a background track, and you can play in the different modes. I recommend that you use an A flute and just stick with white keys on the piano. Maybe you have a friend, or you can play the piano, maybe record it, or there's so many backing tracks out there. You can ask me to make you a backing track, and if I'm in a good mood, I might do it for you. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here on the channel. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to support this work, which I hope you do, join us at patreon.com/Kalani and become a supporting member. We have flute events over there, as well as drumming things and ukulele stuff. So go over there and sign up, become a supporter, and let me know how I can help you. I'm open to requests and, of course, questions. Good luck to you in your flute journey. I hope this has been illuminating, and I hope you enjoy playing in the different modes. Now I'm going to get some a la mode, and I'll check in with you guys later.